they are more live and let live than the Spaniards. So
You'll gain a lot more respect if you even make a little bit of an attempt.
The United States could be more open compared to Germany, but I think compared to the United States,
I mean, this is very unusual. What you're seeing here with these Catalan kids, the confidence around adults and with other people, older people, because it was suppressed by the Spanish dictatorship under Franco for so long. You'd be fined, or you could even be arrested, etc.
How you describe the Spanish, or better say Catalan people here in Barcelona?
well, I think the Catalan people have created their own kind of society here. I don't think they really want much to do with us, foreigners or expats. They're a very closed group, so they tolerate us, even though we do add a lot to their city. But this is their place. Catalonia is their home, and we need to respect that and respect them and their customs and cultures. I haven't had any problems with them at all. I live in a very Catalan neighborhood, and my neighbors all seem to be very nice.
Do you see any differences between people here in Catalonia and in other parts of Spain?
A little bit, yes. I haven't traveled a lot in other parts of Spain, but I do notice that it seems more closed than the society here. I think the Catalans will provide an open society. They are more live and let live than the Spaniards. So I think it's better for gay people, probably better for people of color, and probably even better for women.
How would you describe the Catalan people here in Barcelona?
Yeah, so the Catalan people are very conservative. They're a bit reserved. They mind their business, which I kind of like. You know, as a New Yorker, I'm kind of that same way too. I don't really like people being in my business. And but the thing is, when you really get to know Catalan people, they really welcome you in, and you become family, and you make fantastic connections. They open up, you get to meet their family, their friends, and then you just kind of grow your network from there. But you really have to spend a lot of time really trying to get to know them.
How important would you say is Catalan language in that respect?
You can get by without it, but I definitely think that you'll gain a lot more respect if you even make a little bit of an attempt. So even if you say certain things like adeu, molt bé, if you start to learn some verbs and stuff like that, then they'll start to respect you a bit more, and then they'll say, oh, okay, we'll welcome you in that much more, just because you're making an attempt to, I guess, preserve the language. But you can certainly get away without knowing anything in Catalan here, and you'll probably be perfectly fine. But if you do make even a slight attempt to learn just a little bit of Catalan, it'll take you very far.
And how would you say that people here in Barcelona are different from people in other parts of Spain that you've experienced?
Yeah, like I said, they're a bit more conservative here. In other parts of Spain, they're definitely more open, more welcoming, more warm. But I think that those relationships that you create with people or at least I can only compare it with Madrid and, with Madrid and Malaga. And I would say that those relationships are a bit more superficial than the connections that you would make here. So even though it takes you a while to kind of get to that point where you make a deeper connection with the people here, those connections will typically last, I think, a lifetime. But the Madrid, Malaga, maybe just to go out for a weekend or something like that, hang out, but nothing too deep.
If you compare people in the US and here in Barcelona, what kind of differences do you see in culture and mentality?
I think that here the culture is a lot more open. Everyone here is very open and friendly, and to the point where it's like someone who will just tell you their whole life story walking down the street with them, versus I think in the United States it's more an individualistic culture where you don't necessarily come across people like in your regular life where you're in a car versus you taking the metro or the bus to get around in different places. And yeah, I think the culture here is just very relaxed also. Like when it comes to different aspects of life, I feel like it's a lot more chill and where people aren't always looking for the next thing to do all the time. You just kind of go with the flow. And where in the United States, I've seen different aspects where you have to plan to hang out with different people, like maybe a week or two in advance because scheduling is so crazy. But here it's like, are you free for dinner tonight at 7, 8, whatever? And it's like, sure, it's not tomorrow, it's very chill in that way.
It's interesting that you say that because, like, for example, in Germany, people often say that in the US, people are very open to strike a conversation,
Yeah.
tell you their life story.
Yeah.
But you experience it somehow different here.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's my own personal experience, but I think it's even more open than the United States, for example. I think that, yeah, the United States could be more open compared to Germany, but I think compared to the United States, it's more open here. So on the spectrum, yeah. Yeah.
How would you describe the Spanish, or better to say the Catalan people here in Barcelona?
Well, I mean, to distinguish, most Catalan people have a grandparent who's probably not from Catalonia. So when we talk about Catalan people, there is this idea that if you're born here and raised here and you're a Catalan native speaker, that makes you Catalan. Some people say that's enough. So defining it is not the easiest thing to do. Okay, Catalan people can be great when you're in with them. When you're in, that's difficult to get to that point for most people who are not originally Catalan, especially if you don't speak Catalan. On that point, when I moved here 18 years ago, I had Catalan people telling me, "We are very closed, us Catalans. We are very closed." I wasn't really sure what they meant about closed. I started to learn the longer I lived here. I've been trying to prove Catalan people wrong, that they're not mentally and socially closed, as many Catalan people tell me. But I think there is some truth in that, of having the family. The family is the centre of life, the centre of existence here, which I think is a great thing, and it's one reason I wanted to bring up my son here, or our son here. So having that family as a centre of the world is great, but there's downsides to it as well, because I think in some senses people who are local here are a bit too focused on family, the work, and the set of friends that they already have, and generally don't have much of an interest in extending it. There's exceptions, but that tends to be the rule. Foreigners really haven't really lived here in any large numbers really until after the Olympics in '92. Started to be more foreigners coming in. Now, of course, there's a lot more. I mean, well, I should qualify that by saying there's always been South Americans, there's always been Cubans, there's always been the odd French person or German or Brit. The Barcelona Football Club was founded by English expats. Catalan people won't tell you that, but that's the truth. So, yeah, I think the newer generations, we're starting to see Catalan-born Catalans with a Pakistani guy who's a son of immigrants. Catalan children being friends with Indians or even Moroccans, dare we say. But there's a historic racism towards people of any colour. I'm fortunate that I'm considered to be pretty much a European, which works in my favour, but I never really accept that distinction. For me, I'm an immigrant, and I've experienced racism here, of course, but not as much and not to the degree as somebody who's from the Maghreb, from Morocco, or from Pakistan, or from China. There's a lot of Chinese people living here, running businesses. If we're comparing with Australians, I mean, Australia's a multicultural country. I mean, I grew up with immigrant kids. My father's a British immigrant. Australia's a country of pretty much entirely immigrants or the children of immigrants. And this is not a multicultural country here. That means that if you're not from the dominant culture here, Spanish Catalan, then you are on the outer, on the margins in some respects. The question of language, the Catalan language, comes up in every situation. It's a never-ending question. I mean, this is very unusual, what you're seeing here with these Catalan kids carrying their own bags. At the end of the day, when the parents pick them up, the parents carry, or the grandparents carry these heavy bags for the kids.
heard that
That.
I've heard that here in Catalonia, they just say hello. And,
On camera, on camera.
I've heard that parents take care of the children a long time. Sometimes even in their end of the 20s or in the 30s, they do things for their kids.
Yes, oh
For
yes,
example,
yes.
in Eastern Europe, it's a bit more of the opposite. When children get
Yeah.
25 or something, they help the parents. But here it's the other way around.
No, it's really common here for people, even in their 30s, to still be living at home, and the parents are still doing the cooking and the cleaning, and they don't really financially contribute. It's partly because of the rents being so expensive, but it's a cultural, historical thing anyway. Yeah, it's probably an extension of that. I think, I find it in some of my adult students. I'm talking people in their 20s and 30s. Their sense of independence doesn't really exist much. And it's quite stunning when you come across it and you're working with it. Spoiled. You're spoiled and you're 35 and you're still spoiled. I mean, it's a bit despicable, isn't it? I mean, yeah, it's one thing I've really noticed here is that young people, kids, under 10, the confidence around adults and with other people, older people, is just through the roof. It's I think they grow up with uncles and aunties and extended family. The family unit is not just the mother, the children, it's all the cousins. They grow up with their cousins. Their cousins are older or younger. And they're very natural, they're very confident with adults. Can't confuse that with maturity, different question, but confidence-wise, they're not hesitant at all with older people. Buzzer.
Do you know about some cultural traditions of the Catalans?
Oh yeah, a lot. Yeah. It's a very rich culture. And I think it's rich in some respects because it was suppressed by the Spanish dictatorship under Franco for so long. So from 1939 to 1975, the Spanish dictator Franco, military rebel, led the country and repressed the Catalan language. If this was in the early 1970s, we couldn't speak Catalan in the street. You'd be fined, or you could even be arrested, etc. My favourite part of Catalan culture is the human towers, the Castellers. This is where they build, high or very big towers of humans standing on top of each other with a little kid at the top, and something to behold if you ever get the chance. It's probably the one aspect of Catalan culture that I would say that's something to behold when you're there, when it's right in front of you. The Catalan culture has probably the most boring dance in the world I've ever seen, called the sardana, where people do this little. Actually, no. What am I doing with my hands? No, it's more kind of. It's incredibly dull. And I think a lot of Catalan people secretly think it's pretty dull too.
And have you also had experience with people in other parts of Spain?
Yeah, I've travelled a lot in the other parts of Spain. Yeah. I think what you tend to find is that people in the south tend to be more open, friendly, kind of sociable. This is something, again, that Catalan people tell me, and I tend to have found that seems to be mainly true. I think the other thing that's notable here is Catalonia has a very strong business culture, and Catalan people are proud of their work ethic, and I think they probably exaggerated a bit with the idea that the southern Andalusian people are all very lazy and they never do any work, and we Catalans are the only ones who work hard. You hear that a bit, and it's obviously rubbish. But yeah, I think there's probably more relaxed, slower style of life in the south of Spain as compared with here. Business is probably a larger part of life and culture here than it is in other parts of Spain. I would tend to think that's the case.